Chevron as a company is going to have to pull out of California unless there's some massive, massive policy changes with the way that the state handles oil and gas refinery. Is that going to happen? Probably not. What's the deal? Let's get into it. Here we go.
New today at 5:30, the state is working to finalize a proposal that could lead potentially to more oil production here in the state of California. It comes as the state is bracing for the closure of 2 major refineries within the next year. Thanks for joining us for Fox 40 News at 5:30. I'm Eric Harriman. Nikki has the day off. Fox 40 Capitol reporter Eitan Wallace has a much closer look at that proposal and shares why a major executive at Chevron says that the oil giant is seriously evaluating its future in the state should lawmakers fail to act on it.
It is a very difficult place to do business. And if we don't think we can get a return, we're going to put our money somewhere else. And
that is basic business in general, isn't it? If we can't get our return here, we're going somewhere else. And the outlook for gas, oil, diesel, jet fuel in California is terrible at best. Terrible. Like, they want to shut everything down. That's where they've been going for decades now. And really ham the last, I don't know, however many years. Just all this policy that just basically makes it impossible for big oil to do business in the state.
I don't want to do that.
Chevron executive Andy Walls not mincing words about what it's been like for his company to operate in California as of late.
It's regulation, it's cost of doing business, it's the cost of labor, it's the cost of building, it's the permitting fees, permitting time. It is a lot of things that make it very difficult for a company like Chevron and for a lot of businesses to do business in California. It's very expensive.
It comes as the owners of the Phillips 6.
So let's talk about that for just a second. We'll go back to the video, and we're gonna do this a handful of times. But this is the essence of what has gone on with California that has created a situation where not only is housing exorbitantly expensive, but even if you have a high income in California, it is offset by so many cost of living expenses that are way, way higher than the rest of the United States. And that is essentially why people are leaving. They are voting with their feet. They're going elsewhere. They're coming to Washington. Good luck. They're going to Idaho. They're going to Florida. They're going to Tennessee. They're going away. They're going away. And what that executive just described is not only oil and gas, it's everything else. But everything basically requires petroleum. You know, you either make it out of it or you transport it. Airplane to get jets to get stuff moved. You know, trains, buses, you name it. I mean, vehicles in general use fossil fuel. You got a little bit of electricity in there, but not much. You got not much. We're not there yet. You know what I mean? We're not there yet. So this whole push for California to be non-reliant upon fossil fuels is just virtue signaling at its best and really impacts those in California, especially ones that are middle class to lower class to homeless. You know, so many people become homeless because of an economic event. And then oftentimes they'll turn to drugs to cope, and then they develop mental stuff, or they've got mental stuff to begin with, and they just go down this, you know, crazy train pathway of drugs and whatnot. And that's how California ends up with 1/3 of the homeless population in the United States. And between California, Washington, and Oregon, you know, we've got way over 1/3 of the homeless population. West Coast, best coast for the homeless. Let's keep going. But my point is, oil and gas is such a huge component. I mean, you've got energy in there as well. And you've got housing as costs that are just ridiculously expensive. But the whole petroleum, the big oil, is such a big part of this scope because it's ingrained in everything. It's a cost that if that goes up, everything else goes up as well. So
C6 Southern California refinery in the South Bay and the Valero Northern California refinery.
Sorry, Tristan. Let's get back there.
Announced plans to
And for a lot of businesses to do business in California, it's very expensive.
It comes as the owners of the Phillips 66 Southern California refinery in the South Bay and the Valero Northern California refinery in Benicia announced plans to close those refineries within the next year.
That means we lose another 20% of the gasoline that people in California need to get to work, to get to school, to do the things they do. And that means prices are going to go up and it's going to be less reliable. I think we're at that crisis mode.
Walls, who serves as Chevron's president of downstream, midstream, and chemicals, notes while Chevron moved its headquarters out of California last year, it still operates two major refineries here, one in El Segundo in Southern California and the other in Richmond in Northern California, where a combined 2,500 employees work.
Chevron has been here 145 years. We'd like to stay. We haven't made any decisions to stay or go yet. But we need real, sustainable, durable changes to the way the state works.
But soon,
we need real, sustainable, durable changes to the way that big oil works in California. And guess what? That is not happening. That is not happening. Gruesome Newsom, he's going to, run for president of the United States, run for president 2028. I had a woman in my neighborhood walk by with a Newsom 2028 shirt. I wanted to run her over. I did. I honestly just wanted to, just like, what are you doing? You should listen to News for Reasonable podcast. They'll tell you 10 ways from Sunday why Gruesome Newsom is a terrible choice. Just run California into the ground. He's single-handedly been in politics for 32 years in California. And look at the policies they have that have created a situation of just lack of affordability across every segment. And so much of it starts with oil and gas. It's like all the Mad Max movies, it's all based on petroleum. It's all based on that one pump that's getting out the gas. And it's true. It's totally true. It just, impacts everything. So this executive is saying, hey, it impacts us, but it doesn't impact it impacts all businesses that way. But specifically because of California's policy, they want a virtue signal that, we don't need big oil. We can get by, even though the power grid, is not equipped to handle the demands of an oil-free society by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not happening. Not happening. Let's keep going.
Major refineries here, one in El Segundo in Southern California and the other in Richmond in Northern California, where a combined 2,500 employees work.
Chevron has been here 145 years. We'd like to stay. We haven't made any decisions to stay or go yet. But we need real, sustainable, durable changes to the way the state works.
But soon, changes could be on the way. The governor's office sent us this draft language of a proposed deal that could allow for new long-term oil drilling in the state. Newsom's office makes clear the governor is still dedicated to a pathway that would transition California away from fossil fuels in the long term, but with
Gruesome Newsom. All right. So we got two refineries that are closing down, Valero and Phillips 66. Now we've got Chevron saying, our future here is tenuous at best unless we have some major structural changes to the way that big oil is handled in California moving forward. That ain't going to happen. But Gruesome Newsom, podcaster Newsom, he is dying to be president. So he's got to come up with something that he can use to appease all the people that are saying, hey, your policy just sucks. Your policy is what's creating this, gas price to go up. I mean, Gruesome Newsom has talked about, it's big oil is sticking it to you. It's profit taking. That's why gas prices are so high. And, it's specifically California's gas price and Washington because of the way we have our whole cap and trade deal. It's big blue states with terrible policy ideas. And this is how you get there. This is how you end up with that kind of deal. Now, Gavin Newsom is literally talking out both sides of his mouth because you can't have both. We're looking for a combination of, keeping our policies on clean energy while also balancing the needs of cost concerns for the consumer. You single-handedly have created this scenario, and now with one little 2-for-1 deal, you're trying to get out of it. Ain't going to happen. Not happening. These are shenanigans that are ongoing. that without some major cut and, delete and clean up policy, which is never going to happen, it's a no-go. So this policy here, hey, we're going to give the opportunity to maybe drill for some more oil. That's not going to do it. It's just not going to do it.
We'd like to stay. We haven't made any decisions to stay or go yet, but we need real, sustainable, durable changes to the way the state works.
But soon, changes could be on the way. The governor's office sent us this draft language of a proposed deal that could allow for new long-term oil drilling in the state. Newsom's office makes clear the governor is still dedicated to a pathway that would transition California away from fossil fuels in the long term. But within the next 7 days before the legislative session concludes for the year, efforts are underway to finalize an oil deal. As it stands today, Newsom's proposal, among other things, calls for what's known as the 2-for-1 plug-to-drill oil well permitting approach. In a nutshell, the approach says
2-for-1 plug-to-drill. Okay. All right.
For every 2 idle or orphaned oil wells shut down toward the end of their lifespans, 1 new oil well will be authorized for use in targeted areas that follow appropriate mitigations and environmental protections. The governor's office says this will include oil-rich Kern County and other parts of the Central Valley. It comes after the governor sent the head of the California Energy Commission this letter in April, calling on the state to work with refiners to ensure a pathway forward for affordable and reliable fuel supplies.
So can you believe that? Yes, you can, because you're reasonable. So Gavin Newsom has literally, and politicians before him, created this situation where big oil wants to leave, where gas prices are consistently the highest in the country behind Hawaii, because you got to ship it all there. And now, because he's got impending closures of refineries, he's got to come up with something. And that letter that we saw scrolled on the screen, he reached out to the California Energy Commission to basically get them to come up with something and possibly a buyer for the closed down, the refineries that are going to close down. I mean, what an absolute reach. What an absolute cluster. And I think people see right through this. People say that Gavin Newsom's talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's a politician. He's created this, and now he's got to deal with it. And this is his way of dealing with it. Is, hey, I'll give you a 2-for-1 on Tuesday for a hamburger on Friday. Just nonsense. Just not happening. And you know what? Big oil isn't going to go, oh, okay. Oh, well, then let's play ball. No. They're not. You need major change. And the executive already said it. And the other companies, Valero and Phillips 66, that are pulling out, they've just unequivocally said, no, we're closing down. We're not dealing with nonsense on these refineries in California. So let's hear what Gavin Newsom has to say. He's literally trying to come up with something where he can weasel out of taking full responsibility for his policies, creating a situation where big oil wants to leave California.
Areas that follow appropriate mitigations and environmental protections. The governor's office says this will include oil-rich Kern County and other parts of the Central Valley. It comes after the governor sent the head of the California Energy Commission this letter in April, calling on the state to work with refiners to ensure a pathway forward for affordable and reliable fuel supplies.
Oil and gas.
Newsom's team directing us to these remarks the governor made in July as he spoke about his proposed oil deal.
Find some agreement to address the legitimate concern about how. We're in the how business.
We're in the how business. The how business of what? Of how to run the 4th largest economy in the world into the ground, how to create the most exorbitant cost of living in any state, how to create a situation where people are leaving with their feet, they're voting with their feet to leave the state, how to create the most expensive gas outside of Hawaii, how to create the most unaffordable housing situation, the most unemployed people in the United States. I mean, the list just goes highest gas prices. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on of how not to run your state. That's the how. how not to run your state. And if you want to have your state run like California, vote for Newsom 2028. He'll get you there. He's all about the how to get you where California is now. And he'll get you there. He'll get you there because he's all about the how. Let's keep going.
Move to a low-carbon, green growth future, change the way we produce and consume energy. At the same time, we have enough available fuel supplies, stable fuel supply, and address the anxieties around cost.
And remember, this is just...
I love the anxieties around cost. Yeah, people can't get to work because gasoline is too expensive, and it impacts those on the lower socioeconomic end the most. The anxieties. I mean, it sounds like you're trying to figure out if your tea time is 9 or 9:15. I have anxiety. No, it's people's lives being upended because of the costs that are layered onto Californians and anybody in big blue Democrat-run states. This is what you get with those progressive policies. You get exactly this. So the how to get there? Just follow what gruesome Newsom is doing. He'll get you there. He'll get you there.
A proposal at this point. The time is ticking, though. If it's to advance this year, a final deal must be struck before the end of the 2025 legislative session next Friday. At the state capitol, covering local news that matters, Eitan Wallace, Fox 40 News.
So I've covered this one in full as well. This highlight you're seeing here, this article you're seeing here. Coalition Group, California Coalition Group says new tax could add $324,000 to housing costs. They've got this ridiculous tax that was tagged onto a bill, and moving forward, it could cost XYZ per year for the next 20 years as this this legislation goes into effect. And developers and new homeowners are going to have to absorb this $324,000 moving forward. This is another layer of just absolute ridiculousness that California doesn't need to have. But what advocates are saying for this tax is that they need this tax to construct affordable housing. Well, they wouldn't need to construct affordable housing if they already had affordable housing, but they don't because of all the layers and the taxation and nonsense they put on it. This legislation here, this taxation here is a prime example of that. This has to do with its policy. This is all based on policy. And the other states where people are moving to, they're moving away from California. California has more out-migration, it has less in-migration, and it has less of a birth rate because people don't want to have kids there. It's too expensive. People are not moving into California. They are moving out of California. And that's how you get this out-migration in numbers greater than in-migration, which for years and years and years, California had people coming in. But because of all this stuff and because of how expensive things have gotten in California, based on progressive Democrat-led policy, yep, that is what's driving them away. That's essentially what it is. Just layer upon layer upon layer of shenanigans. It's stuff you don't need. It's policy. It's just bullshit is what it is. Hate to say that. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Aunt Nancy. It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. But we know it. And the difference between a Florida or a Texas or an Oklahoma or an Idaho and California or Washington or Oregon is the BS factor. You got all this BS that's unnecessary, but because we want to, hug a tree and, save the whatever. And we want to fund this. We want to fund that and homelessness. $724 million is what Portland is spending on homelessness. That's what Portland, Oregon spent last year on homelessness. $724 million, $724 million. And their mayor is now begging Portlanders to donate to homeless causes. Oh, we got to donate. You guys need to donate. you guys got to donate. Another one of my podcasts. But it's this kind of absolute shenanigans here that creates that situation where everything's really expensive, wildly expensive, much more expensive than needs to be. But because of virtue signaling, this is where you end up. This is where you end up. This is where things go to just absolute insanity. Take a quick peek at this, but we're not going to spend much time. The existence of the tax can be attributed to the state aiming to reduce car trips by 50% by 2035 by taxing new developments based on their potential vehicle miles traveled. So that's how they're going to do it. The state thinks that they need money to build housing for low-income families, subsidized housing. Now, I have done full podcasts on that. You can see it on the channel. And they wouldn't need to build all of this housing for low-income families because a lot of families wouldn't be low income if the cost of living wasn't so high. And what has created cost of living to be so high? It's public policy. And you can compare the cost to develop housing in Texas to California. And you go down to Texas and you're like, wow. Go to Oklahoma, you've got a very nice little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, Rambler-styled home, brick exterior, 2-car garage, brand new, for $315,000 all day long. I mean, you're not in the heart of downtown Oklahoma City. You're in the suburbs, but who cares? Because you don't have massive traffic there. You're in a little development. It's because they don't have all the extra crap, including they've got some of the cheapest energy prices out there. Oklahoma does. Because they're a provider and drill, baby, drill. Well, so this 2-for-1 program on the new drilling, that is just that's a try for an appeasement of big oil. Hey, maybe we'll strike a deal. We won't. And if big oil says no, then Gavin Newsom comes back and said, hey, I tried to work with them. I tried to fight for you, the consumer, to get these oil prices down, but they have spiked. And unfortunately, there's not a thing I can do about that. I mean, they are price gouging you right now. They're price gouging you. And in fact, it's just market reaction to policy. Simple as that. I mean, none of this stuff is rocket science. It's literally not that complex. It's not that it's, supplies of, it's the law of supply and demand and market reaction and, competition, basic business stuff that California is doing all ass backwards. And here you are. Here's your end result. But hey, you want that to come to a state near you? Vote for Gavin Newsom. Because again, he will get you there one way or another. So that's in your future. I'd say vote for him. 2028. Gruesome Newsom. He's your guy. Not my guy. He's your guy. All right. And I know he's not your guy because you're reasonable. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.